Hello, we're welcome. We're welcome. Welcome to Flirting with Realities. And my name is Eric, and this is Carol Lee. Two names, a first and a middle name, not just a first name. If you're watching this, you have the opportunity, which is a very special opportunity, to be able to say that you watched us before we were famous. You watched this podcast before anybody knew who we were. And if you subscribe right now, you'll be able to say you were one of our very first subscribers. Like, we only have 26.
You're like, in 6 years from now, you'll be like, I was watching them from the beginning. I was one of their first subscribers.
It doesn't even have to be 6 years. We could blow up this episode.
We are going to blow up. I just was saying 6 years from now, when we're still famous.
But I'm saying this could happen next week. And if you're watching this right now, before everybody jumps on the bandwagon, you could subscribe and you could watch all of our videos and say, dude, I have been there since the beginning with these people.
The beginning of time.
Before they were famous. I was with them back when they were doing podcasts with just one camera view pointing at both of them. And I couldn't even see their faces. And it was horrible. But I got bad news. It'll probably be that way for a really long time. Anyway, so, if you want to be one of the first, man, subscribe and watch all our stuff and comment. We've only had 1 or 2 legit comments. So you could just comment and you could be like, dude, I was one of the very first to ever comment on their stuff.
Yeah.
Or just be late to the show, if that's what you want to do too. But today we're talking about, and Carol Lee will have to brace herself because I did not talk to her about
Right, I was just wondering what we're talking about.
Well, we're going to talk about something that I've been focusing on and very curious about lately, which is, and I've talked to you a lot about this, but a lot about like awareness. Like, what is awareness and how aware are people?
Yeah.
I think
there's levels of it too.
Yeah. The thing I've been focusing on lately is, and I don't even know if it's true, but for some reason it's clicking for me. Maybe I just need to talk through it somehow. But a huge part of awareness I've been focusing on is the ability to talk to a person and have them. I think a lot of people are confused what talking to a person means today. Because almost all my conversations, and this might have been the way my whole life's been, but a lot of my conversations is somebody just waiting to interrupt me to say what they want to say. There's no good conversation really left in the world where somebody listens to what you say and then they put their input in. But anyway, I've had this thought of like, well, what is awareness? And that's where I was wondering, like, if I talked to a lake, if I talked to the water in the lake, that would be ridiculous because the water's not going to understand me. Water's not going to talk back. So it's a ridiculous notion, and I get that. But that's how intelligent the water is to me. It's not. But then that's when I say, like, fast forward and we talk to a plant. Maybe a plant will react. A plant can grow. That's what they say. You play music for a plant, and then the plant grows, and it's happier and all this stuff. So I think to me, that's like, well, a plant might be a little bit more intelligent than a body of water. But then you move on to like a dog, and like a dog all of a sudden can sit and he can roll over, he can do this stuff. And maybe if he's Lassie, he can even talk to you. She, shouldn't say he, because there's smart girl dogs too. But a dog, a little bit smarter, or a cat, a little bit smarter. But then we walk into humans, and there's just a lot of humans that you can't understand, and they can't understand you. So at some point, they're almost on the same level as a dog in a way. Like they're barely functioning. This is like the lower end of humans, but still to get my point, and then we fast forward, and I think some of the smartest humans would be people that can hear you and people that can communicate with you. And so this is just where I've been, and maybe it's not awareness, maybe it's more intelligence. But I just think it's super interesting that this is what you and I have been talking about, is I feel like if you wanted to make yourself a more intelligent, more aware person, all you'd have to do is stop talking when other people are trying to talk to you and listen to them and acknowledge what they're saying to you, and then have a clear conversation with them. And isn't that, like, if you want to talk about being in the system and being a zombie, isn't that kind of what it is? Is you're just in your head? And so what if you just stop being in your head and you start being in the moment with another person? Like, that's a really big deal, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the first step is awareness that you aren't being present with people. So I think it does come down to partial awareness. You need to understand that you're only having conversations to get your point across or prove yourself right and give yourself some sort of feeling, rather than be present with a person and understand what they're saying. So it's being aware, being emotionally intelligent about yourself, and understanding that, shit, man, I've been trying to interject and only talk about what I want to talk about, or prove this person wrong, or so it is a level of awareness.
Well, and I think we've been talking a lot about um, like conversation that has to do with intellectual conversation, but I don't even know if it needs to do with that. It could just be, I went to Disney on Ice and you went to a monster truck show, and you don't want to hear about my Disney on Ice because you want to talk about your monster truck show. And you can't even hear, this isn't even like an intelligent conversation. You're not even aware enough to be like, oh, well, this person is sharing something that they did. They're trying to connect with me, and then I'm not connecting with them because I'm too busy talking about myself. And so you have, a lot of times you have two people not even, that's the funny thing is, I've always said, like, are you having a conversation if you're the only one talking and you're the only one like listening to yourself? That's not a conversation. You can do that by yourself. It'd be weird to talk to yourself, but that's basically what you're doing, because the other person's not listening to you and you're not listening to them. So why are you two making sounds at each other?
Yeah, I've kind of gone through sort of a revelation in my life as of late, that I'm a little more understanding of and trying to be more compassionate, which I feel like I am more compassionate. And I have to say, I used to be there. And I remember I've told you about that interpersonal communications class that was life changing for me, when the teacher had us do like some exercise and explained the curriculum, that it's your responsibility to get your message across, and it's not the person's responsibility to understand you. You need to, like, explain yourself and then ask questions to them and ask if they understand and if you can articulate it in any other way. And then even as the listener, it's your responsibility to say, so what I think you're saying is, and it made me realize, which was a really perfect time for me because I was a claims adjuster at the time. So it's very easy when you have that kind of responsibility to not really want to listen to people and just, anyway, it was just like a perfect time for me to be open to this information. But I have to say, I was kind of this person you're talking about.
Well, it's easy to do. I mean, I think we all have.
Yeah. So I'm just more compassionate about where people are at, but I absolutely agree with you as far as it, I mean, not necessarily having to be intellectual in nature. It could literally be the Disneyland thing. But most of the time people are like, you say, oh, I just went to Disneyland, and I'm like in my head going, did he finish? Or maybe I'm not even waiting for you to finish. You don't even finish saying Disney. I just start hearing Disney. And then I'm like, oh my God, I went to Universal Studios. And then I went on that Hulk ride and just completely, like, it's just all about me. And this is where I think the world that we live in is just a highly narcissistic world. And it's not about sharing like connections and relationships and understanding people. People just want to be understood. They're not trying to understand somebody else.
Well, yeah, I thought you were going somewhere else with that. And it was kind of an interesting thought was, and I guess I'll piece it together because it was actually your thought, I thought. But a lot of times when somebody's like, well, I went to the monster truck, like, but it's more like you start going, yeah, you know, I went to Disneyland this weekend. Oh, I went to Universal Studios. Oh, it's so cool down there. Do you like Southern California? And like that happens to me all the time when I'm having a conversation with somebody. And you want to just be like, I haven't even gotten my first thought out. I haven't even started the conversation. I haven't started the thought that I was going to share with you. And we're already moving on to Southern California. But that's how conversations go. And you never, like, nothing ever gets done. But the thing that I thought you were starting to talk about, it kind of seemed like it was going to tie into, you know, how somebody, we all live fake lives, like on Facebook and Instagram. It almost feels like that, where everybody's like, I don't know if you want to call it bragging, but on Facebook, everybody's like, look how awesome my life is. Yay. And they're taking selfies and stuff. But I mean, are you kind of doing that in your conversation by saying how cool your life is? But it's kind of like you took 20 selfies and only one worked and 19 looked horrible. But it's kind of that same thing as like, nothing's real here. Like even you telling me like, oh yeah, I went to Universal Studios. It was so fucking cool. And meanwhile, you fought with your fucking husband and your kids the whole time and you fucking hated it. But you want to tell everybody how fucking cool your time was, you know?
It's super interesting because if you think about it, these people could be craving companionship and relationships and deep connection, but they're not even understanding that they can't even provide those things for somebody else.
Well, you're not even right. You're pushing it away.
Yeah.
You're rejecting any possibility.
Yeah. So it's super interesting to even like think about that this is where most people are, but they're in the matrix and they have no idea that they're there.
But that's what I'm saying about, I feel like there's an awareness tied to the ability to have a conversation. But then I was actually tripping out because then I was thinking about, is some of it by design? Because I started thinking about like TikTok and like all this, where it's just like not paying attention. I'm not paying attention to anything. And does that program us to become less aware?
Oh yeah, it gives you attention disorder, right? So you have an inability to focus or keep your attention on things, which also is going to affect your conversations. You're not going to be able to keep focus on your conversations. Well, so that's certainly part of it.
But if you're watching TikTok and you're like, mildly interesting, not anymore, not. How interesting is your conversation with other people? It's like you're trying to go like this to the person you're having a conversation with because you can't sit down and focus on something that isn't highly stimulating for more than 2 seconds.
Or understand it's not all about you.
Well, but you know what's interesting is we heard Rob Dyrdek talking about when he was younger, he'd roll into a haircut place in his Ferrari, and his time's so valuable that he would pay for everybody's haircuts in front of the line as long as he can cut line. And, you know, I think if that's how you want to live your life, I think that's great. But you and I have discussed it that I think that you're missing out on a big part of life, which is sitting in that waiting room and learning to be patient and also learning to enjoy your life while you're just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. But that's kind of the same thing as TikTok, right? It's like, I need stimulation. I need stimulation. My time's value. Or how about just nothing? How about talking to a boring ass person and connecting with them on their boring ass level? How about learning how to do that?
Well, it doesn't even have to be boring. I've really been embracing, you know, like certain relationships in my life, and they're very repetitive in nature. And I'm just embracing being there with that person and like trying to be as present as possible and understanding that I don't always have to be stimulated and like it doesn't always have to be all about me. And yes, for sure. But can you imagine? I I don't know if I've told you this, but I think it's helped me like develop my communication skills and be able to listen. I used to love old people when I
Yeah.
was younger. And I had a really close relationship with my high school boyfriend's grandfather. I would just go directly in his room and he would tell me stories and like we'd have some banter and I think that's going away. And I think you had a lot to learn from old people.
Oh, yeah. I always wanted old people to tell me like all the things they've learned. And I think I'm understanding now that old people just go, fuck it, just go away. Just like, I can't go through this. Like, I've been too abused by people and their thoughts. But, yeah, I remember I had a thought. Oh, I was just going to say, like, the funny part is it's TikTok. You know, when we were kids, we had, you know, I don't know what you had. I had like 3 TV channels, you know,
I
and
think we
so
had 4.
yeah, so it was like, a kid today probably can't understand what that means, but it's not that we had 4 TV channels and you could watch anything in the world that you want on those 4 TV channels. It's you watched what was the, on 4 TV channels, and one of those was probably PBS, which
Yeah.
you people like seem to love Bob Ross, but back in the day when Bob Ross was
Nobody
on, you'd be like,
liked it.
oh my god, the dude that's painting, but it's the best thing on, and so I don't know. I guess I'll try to watch it, but that's what you did, and that like for some reason it's a little more interesting because you had to watch it. But the same thing with TikTok is it could be really interesting, but you give it no chance. And so you're just go. But if you actually had to watch every single thing that you stumbled upon, you'd probably go, oh my God, like I didn't realize how much stuff I was passing up that was actually interesting. But it's the same thing about actually engaging in somebody and engaging in the conversation is that person is usually twice as interesting. Whether you like them or not is not the topic. It's they could be somebody you don't like, but it could be just interesting and how much you don't like their point of views or something. But
You could learn a lot about yourself
yeah,
in that circumstance. Because I really have been trying to do that lately when, like, I start to have a feeling that I don't really like, then, you know, try to still engage, but learn something about myself while that's happening.
yeah. So I don't know. I guess it's just interesting how little I feel like I can talk and connect with people these days. It seems impossible.
Well, I think there's a lot going on in the world. I think like people are overly stimulated with things to buy, things to do. Like they keep being told they have anxiety and like all these other things that they have to deal with. And like I mean I think a lot of people are just not really understanding that they're living in this program that they have going on and not being able to like connect with people.
Yeah, it's just interesting to feel like you're watching people go deeper and deeper into their oblivion.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to watch.
But to sit there and I don't know how many people I'm like, I just asked you a question. Like you didn't even answer the question that I just asked you. You just started talking again, and it was about something totally different. I asked you a direct
I see
question.
you do that sometimes.
Well, yeah, because it's just like, hello, are we? This is what I'm saying. Like, why are you and I making sounds at each other? Why don't we just? I could just go do this in the mirror. I don't need you to do this. You're supposed to be here when I'm talking to you. It's I don't know. It's to me it's like a frustrating and interesting situation where
This is why it's super important to me that I give my presence to people that I'm with because I mean, see how it makes you feel when someone isn't present with you and they're just like not even listening to you. It's a bizarre feeling.
what do you suppose? Because the thing is, these people that have these conversations, they don't care if you're listening, or maybe they just assume you're listening.
I don't think that they think about it.
You think they're just talking and they're just like, oh, I said what I had to say. Okay, see ya. Like,
yeah, I really do.
It's insane that there are some people that I know that they don't listen to anything you're saying. They just want to say what they have to say. It's actually most people I know, but I had this situation earlier this week I was telling you about, and this guy just wanted to tell me what he wanted to say, and then I was like, well, I have some facts, and he's like, we just won't argue about it. Talk to you later. It's like, well,
Neil deGrasse Tyson with Terrence Howard.
Yeah, it's all
like just have a conversation. It doesn't
a non-emotional conversation. Like, why are all our conversations emotional now?
Because there is an identity that people take on with their beliefs, and for some reason they feel like if they allow you to speak and listen to you, they have like something happens to their identity.
Well, because I think you're not pushing truth, you're pushing opinion.
Yeah.
And you're wanting to acquire all these tricks to make somebody agree with you. This is what I've always said. That conversation should have nothing to do with winning. Conversation should have everything to do with finding truth. And you should be open to the idea that your opinion is not the truthful one. Somebody else could have the truthful opinion.
I mean, I think that's hard for a lot of people, but to me, that was one of the most liberating things as far as my spiritual journey, I like to call it, is like letting go of that bullshit. It's that bullshit thing that you carry on and hang on to of being right, because it literally means nothing.
Well, but the thing is why. This is what I was telling you. Is the problem is when people go into it with this like, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm going to tell you you're wrong. And when you go into it so strongly, man, you can't come out of that. You can't come out of that. You have to go into it going, wait, so what do you think? Because I think something different. When you go into it calmly, you go into it with an open mind. Now you can back out. You go, oh, I see what you're saying. You're right.
Let me try to explain to you where I think these people are. I think they're so wrapped up in their stories and beliefs, and it's going to chip away. Like, they don't have the confidence to have these conversations. They lack the inner knowing inside of themselves that they would be okay if they're wrong.
Well, but that's what you and I have discussed also in the past, is how many people find their value in being right about things. That's where their value comes from, is like, I know everything. And so this is why I'm a valuable person. And then when you tell them they're wrong, it's like, oh my God, now I'm a horrible person because I don't know more than everybody.
It's a super interesting stance. I mean, I think religion like is a lot that way. Like, this is the way you get to heaven, and if you don't do it this way, you're all burning in the depths of hell. And maybe that's like instilled this in some people. I don't know. But if you can liberate yourself from that and understand that like nothing happens to you when you're wrong. It's all a construct. If you believe that like something happens to your humanness and you become less of a human because you were incorrect about something, it's a lie. It's not true. It's okay to be wrong about things.
Well, but this is where I'm coming from, is why put yourself in the position of even being wrong? Why not just have an opinion that floats? Because the problem is when you're like, no, this is what's happening. That's what I'm saying, is like, you're setting your feet in and you're digging in, and now you can be wrong because you just told that person you were positive that you were right. But how about just never being right about anything? Just being like, I mean, I think the sky is blue. Don't you?
Yeah, I don't know why you were. I mean, I wasn't saying that you should be right about things.
No, you're just saying it's okay to be wrong, but I'm saying, why even ever be wrong? Because if you
I'm
don't,
just trying to give these people an opening that nothing will happen to your humanness if you discover like something that you believe is incorrect.
gotcha.
Yeah.
But moving to the next subject, which would be, why ever even be right or wrong?
Yeah. I mean, I
It's
think
why ever
that
say
is the
that?
next step.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is what I've tried to explain to my kids, but it's a really hard thing to explain, is if you ever go like, nope, you're wrong, I'm going to tell you why you're wrong, you're putting yourself in a weird position. Like, why would you ever do that? Just don't do that. Just say like, am I listening to you right? You think that you should cook spaghetti for 18 hours? You think that's right? Come in it that way rather than going like, no, you do not cook spaghetti for 18 hours. That is a wrong way to do it. Now it's like, you're like, that's not a way to treat a person. Plus, it's why, this is what I'm saying, like, why have such a strong opinion that you're set in your ways? Because
I
that's
don't
when you
have
become
those
wrong.
kind of conversations that you do. No one's like saying to me, like set in stone, that you have to cook spaghetti for 18
You don't ever
hours.
hear people talk to each other that way?
Oh, I mean,
Really? My kids do it all the time.
well, they're children.
But they're children, but where did they learn it from? I mean, I guess I
Yeah.
shouldn't go there, but they learn it from adults. The adults do it all the time.
Yeah. My family doesn't do it. My kids don't do it. I mean, they have their moments, but it's rare.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just saying it's just a different way to approach life.
I
That,
agree with you. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I mean, it was like when we were having coffee with your mom, and I was like, you're both right. I try to come at life that your life and your perspective is your perspective, and I am inquisitive about it. Same with your mom, same with my dad. And it's yours. It's your journey to have. And who am I to say you shouldn't do something a certain way, or anybody else? So
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And I wouldn't, even if I thought I was right, I wouldn't come at someone with, oh, well, you're fucking wrong. No, you're wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it happens I see it happen all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I know it happens to you a lot. It seems like it happens with your car people a lot too.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about, where people find value in being right. So the only thing that's better than being right is telling somebody how fucking wrong they are, and then you can feel how right you are, and that makes you even more powerful. But that's your setup too, is you better hope you're right, because if you're not, now you're gonna feel like crap, and then there's just no reason to go through it. But
No, I think you're right. And I see a lot of people in my life really just come at communication a lot of the times inquisitively, and I'm talking about mostly with my family. Um People that I work around are really, they like to talk about themselves, but I don't feel like they're listening really to me. I think they are wanting to interject what they're doing in their lives, but I don't feel like they're ever trying to really tell me I'm wrong.
yeah, one thing I wonder too is we all have instant access to the internet, and we all research things to death, and we have a ton of information. And I mean, before you had the internet, it was kind of like, well, I mean, I think like this might
Let's go get the
happen.
Encyclopedia Britannica.
Well, but it was all like you didn't know what somebody else knew, and like you really didn't know. Like nobody really knew anything like deeply, and so you were. It was kind of like a lot of just it was kind of like what we were talking about. Like I don't know, but I think World War II like did this. Like don't like no, I learned World War II in school, and it was kind of like more like forgiving because. But now everybody's like, I read about World War II
I
last
saw it on
night in bed.
YouTube.
Yeah, it's I think everybody thinks they're a fucking expert on everything. Like that boat that ran into the bridge like a month ago and collapsed the whole bridge. It's like everybody all of a sudden was an expert on bridges. Like bridges don't collapse like that, okay? So in engineering class, and it's like, oh, who are you? Like you just studied bridges like for 2 hours and watched a couple of YouTube videos, and now you can go online and you can tell everybody how bridges work. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy
to watch.
But that's what I'm saying is like how much is social media or the internet where you can research and you can get a lot of knowledge, but that's the dangerous part is everybody's like books. It's not even book smart. It's like ninth hand information smart is what people are these days. They're like, no, bridges don't collapse like that, okay? Because they're made of like copper braided twine steel rope, and it's just like what? Like you don't know any of this shit.
I think taking Wayne Dyer's advice, where he basically taught me to come from a stance to just go, really? I never thought of it that way. And to take information from people that you believe will benefit you, and to leave the information that won't, and not let it interfere with you any other way. Like,
yeah, I'm just like trying to reference like what we were talking about in the very beginning of having a conversation and not listening to people.
yeah.
Because you know everything and then you want to be right and researched it on the internet and just everything. It just seems like a mess.
Humbleness is another quality that I think is really amazing, that I think maybe a lot of people could, maybe retake a look at their value system.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, it's, you and I have been dealing with trying to get our business going. We've been dealing with like a lot of people and a lot of searching for things. And it's funny to watch like my attitude and my state of mind. And, I think if you look at that and then you look at like there's people that wake up and grab their phone and go on Facebook and start fights.
Yeah.
And then they get in fights. I mean, I think it's probably a majority of people that go on social media getting a fight or two a day. And think about where we're at just by talking to people trying to get products and how frustrated we are.
Yeah.
How frustrated would you be in general if you were arguing? I mean, there's probably people arguing about 10 different topics all day long on Facebook. They're checking their notifications. Okay, who's arguing? Like, you know,
yeah,
it's like,
you know, it's a recipe for disaster, because you have to think, especially since I'm not on there anymore, it's way easier for me to like be an outsider looking in and remember things that I used to go through on there of like, yeah, I can't even imagine. I'm sure that I felt disgusting being on there and I didn't look at comments. I can't imagine how you feel if you're engaging negatively in comments.
yeah, comments are a horrible thing.
I just personally don't like the way like it sucks you in, like the meaning of it all, the whole likes, like what is it? You're supposed to get likes on there, and yeah, it's just I don't even know anymore.
Yeah. So awareness, I guess the only other thing I wanted to add that I've been thinking about was this is like a thought I had a while back where I was thinking, I think having conversation is a level of awareness, but I also think this is something that has motivated me that we've talked about, is I think awareness, like level 1 would be like recognizing when you have problems. And then awareness number 2 would be to actually do something about those problems. Because it's interesting even to watch myself and think about something that I might do. You know, like for instance, maybe you like throw a piece of garbage at the garbage and it misses, and you're like, eh. But it's like, why don't you have the willpower to go pick up that garbage and throw it in the garbage can? You know, so it's like, I think the awareness is like, oh, I threw the garbage at the garbage and it missed, and I'm not picking it up, and I'm going to go sit on the couch. That's awareness.
Yeah.
But the next level of awareness is, oh, I already have the answer to this problem, and I'm going to go fix it. I'm going to pick the garbage up and put it in the garbage.
Yeah.
And that's how you make your life better. Is
So.
you see, you're aware of problems that you have in your life. And maybe the garbage thing isn't the best analogy, but
I think it's a good basic analogy.
yeah, I mean, maybe it's like arguing with somebody. Like, first you have to be aware that you're arguing with somebody, but then you have to be aware of how to solve it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a levels of awareness that's really been helping me, is looking at things in my life and going, oh. But the thing is, I think most of the time you know what the answer is, but you're not aware enough to implement the solution. You know, and so I just think that's an interesting thing to look at, as far as, I think that's levels of awareness. I think there's these levels of awareness that you can kind of pick up. But that's what I was saying about the conversation one, is like, if you're watching this and you're like, I want to be a more aware person, start with your conversation. Listen to another person when they're talking to you, and stop thinking about what you want to say. Listen to them.
That's what I did after that class. I quit. I just quit interjecting.
Yeah.
I would fully listen and practice. Get an interpersonal communication book if you want to make your relationships deeper, because it's amazing when you actually start asking the person what they're really trying to say to you, or just really taking the time just to let them finish their entire story.
But how amazing is it? Don't you think it's amazing when you're having a conversation with somebody that lets you finish talking? Doesn't that give you such a good feeling versus somebody that instantly cuts you off and you're like, okay, you need to stop talking because you're interrupting me. Like, you know, I feel like I have to say that to people, like, stop interrupting me and I need to finish my conversation. I need to finish my thought. I haven't even told you what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That is a frustrating feeling versus like feeling heard is a great feeling. Feeling like you're not heard is a completely frustrating feeling.
I have to tell you, so me and Tyler, my son, we have a lot of differing opinions. Like, we don't agree on everything, but he absolutely will listen to whatever I say. He'll listen to it.
Which is pretty amazing for a son and a mother.
Well, I think it is amazing. I think those are the kind of relationships you want to have, because you need to understand it's not about, like, you don't need somebody to agree with you all the time. That's doesn't mean your relationship is deep. Me and him, like, he can tell me stuff he thinks, and I find it super intriguing and interesting. I don't think it's that way, but yeah, being able to, sometimes he tells me shit that's so interesting. I'm like, really? I mean, I need to think about that deeper. But it's
Yeah.
just exactly what you're talking about. If you don't allow these conversations, how can you ever learn anything? And it doesn't hurt my feelings when he goes, you don't think so? He'll go, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think it might be this. It doesn't hurt my feelings. He's
Yeah.
listened to everything I had to say. He might ask a few questions why I think it's exactly what you're talking about. It doesn't mean you have to agree with the person, but when you're having that type of conversation, you have a deep connection with this person. They respect you, even though they may not agree with you. And it feels amazing.
Well, I mean, that's a great point. Is think about, you know, if there's a couple watching this, listening to this, and you get in arguments, how many times do couples get in arguments and somebody's going, "You're not even fucking listening to what I'm saying. You can't even hear what I'm saying. You don't even know what the problem is." And the other person just keeps talking and they get all stirred up. And it's like, that's the thing is like, and if you just stop and listen, if both people are listening, then you go, "Oh, so you feel this way? This is what's happening." And then it's not really an argument anymore. But not only are you arguing about what you're arguing about, but then it's even worse and more emotional because then people don't feel heard, which is extra frustrating. So this is what I'm talking about. Just have a conversation, but it's interesting because you're saying, like, listening to you talk, not only am I aware of myself and my surroundings, but I'm aware of like this other person talking too, which is, it's kind of like twofold. You got to be aware, which means out of your head, like there's a world around you, but then you have to be aware that, oh, there is a thing right here, and this thing is communicating with me, and I need to understand. Like think of how big a trip that is. This thing is in my reality, and it's trying to say something to me, and most people can't grasp that. Think about that. That's a crazy thought. There is a thing very close in my reality, and I can't even recognize it. I can't even acknowledge it. Like, that's a wild thought, really. But it's happening all day.
All day.
All day, every day.
You know, you say the couple thing. Another thing that I know I used to do is, if someone brought something to me in an intimate relationship, I just would immediately be on the defensive. Like, I thought I'm like, I do everything right. You hardly do anything. So I would just be like, in my head, be like, oh, fuck no. Oh, fuck no. But when I quit doing that and understood that a person has feelings and an experience and needs and wants as well as you do, And there's no reason to be defensive about that. This person has a perspective and a reality. And it's kind of like what we were saying, if you're being wrong doesn't do anything to your confidence or your self-assurance or who you are. It's also if someone has like, babe, you did this and it really hurt my feelings and it made me feel this way. It's okay that someone feels upset by something you did and it doesn't take anything from you. In fact,
And it's okay to acknowledge it.
It can really open up your relationship what I try to do is I treat us as one thing. Like if there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with me. So I need to like be completely open to what you're saying to me. And even to the point that I may have to look at myself and how I'm doing something that I may not notice. But yeah, as far as the couple thing goes, you can really change your relationship if you quit like being in your head.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's the more we talk about this, the more it's like, dude, how unaware are we all of ourselves? And this is what I've always said is like, I probably know you better than you know yourself.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I can see you.
Yeah.
And because I don't have any defenses about how you act.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part. But it's interesting to think about this awareness and this lack of awareness that we have about ourselves. And I was super intrigued because I was talking to you about Eckhart Tolle, and I'll just paraphrase from what I understand, but he was watching somebody talk to themselves, and he's like, that's crazy. And then in the next short period of time, he caught himself talking to himself in front of somebody else.
In the bathroom.
Yeah, and he was like, oh my God, I'm talking to myself. And my mind about exploded. I'm like, how in the world could somebody talk to themselves and not know that they're talking to themselves out loud? And I've been tripping out about that. And then I told you I went on a hike, whatever it was, a day or two ago. And I stopped myself because I was going like this. I was like using my hands and I was kind of like softly talking. I'm in the middle of the woods and I'm like heavily like deep in thought or whatever you want to say. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm totally like talking to myself. I'm totally like, if you were like watching me with like binoculars or something, I think you'd be like, what is he doing? But this is, it was crazy because I'm like, dude, how aware of myself am I if I don't know that I'm doing these things? And the only reason I know that I'm doing it is because you told me a story about somebody else who didn't know that they were doing it. What else am I doing in my life that I am totally unaware of? And it is like, but this is like what I was saying, like this trips me out to think about. I've never understood this or begun to understood, but people that talk to themselves, they might not know they're talking to themselves. That's a wild thought. I've always just assumed they knew that they were talking. Well, they think they're talking to somebody else, like they can see somebody and they're talking to that person. I don't do that. Like I'm talking to myself. I'm like, okay, so if I take the grocery cart over here and I guess like I can do that. I don't see people, and I don't know. Maybe people see people, or maybe they're talking to themselves. I don't know what they're doing, but it's been an amazing thought for me to think that people don't even know that they're speaking out loud when they do. Like that is a crazy thing. And this is what we're talking about. Like we're just not aware of ourselves. We don't even know what we're doing.
I think, it's a large part of why we're here is to get to know yourself on a intimate, deep level and unfold as you unfold. I mean,
yeah. I mean, what were you talking about? You were saying most people don't even know that they have thoughts.
yeah, there's a large part of the population that don't realize. Like, if you say, start paying attention to the type of thoughts you're saying to yourself, they're like, what do you mean? Yes, we have 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are repetitious. You're literally pretty much living a Groundhog Day with your thoughts.
Oh
if
yeah, for
you
sure.
don't try to change them.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the weird thing too, is then you gotta wonder how many people are walking around. I mean, I guess the term I would use is unconscious. They're unconscious. I mean, they're a human being walking around, but they're not even. I think we all assume that humans are all conscious beings.
What? No.
Well, but this is what I was saying. It's hilarious because I thought about this and I was thinking about if a paramedic rolls up on, say, a homeless person and they're like, oh my, are they okay? Are they conscious? Like, think about the word they're using. Are they conscious?
Yeah.
The answer would be no. Not on a good day. They're not conscious. And especially now that they got hit in the head with a baseball bat, they're definitely not conscious. You know, but the word we use, conscious, like, what does it mean? Because a lot of people are not even. This is what we're saying. I'm saying 90-something% of people you can't even talk to. Does that mean they're conscious? I don't. They're barely
unconscious. They're living the program automatically. They're not interrupting their program. So the way we started interrupting our program, because we had one too, is we started working out and then we started eating healthy, and you get out of this fog and then you just keep starting.
Yeah.
You do self-development things, you do cold baths, you create things, you get out of your comfort zone. And yeah, most people are unconscious.
But this is something I've been thinking about that I think is wild, because I think everybody probably looks at me and you, because what you just said is I'm just like 100% on the same page as you, like 100%. But I feel like everybody probably looks at us and they're like, "Okie dokie, weirdo." Like, what do you mean? You're conscious?
There is a lot of people who are awakening to this idea right now. But there's certainly going to be a large part of the population who thinks that you're just an esoteric person that doesn't know what you're talking about.
But the problem is with me and you, is we see this as being importance, not the word essential, or it's, like, I don't want to use it, but like being pulled out of the matrix.
I think you should use it.
But it's like you and I both think this, and so like we want all of our family members and our loved ones to, like, we're like, hey, listen, like, become conscious. Like, there's this whole thing going on that you don't even know about. Like,
yeah.
And people are just like, huh, what? Okay. And it's like, I'm trying to tell you something. But this is, again, I can't tell you anything because you won't listen to what I'm having a conversation about. You can't even hear me talk.
They have to be ready.
Yeah, it's so weird, but I think about it like this. Like, I think everybody thinks humans are conscious. And I think there's an argument for that depending on your definition. But what I'm talking about, and maybe this will put me too far out there for too many people, but I think plants could have something you call as a consciousness. I think a tree could have a consciousness. And I think a tree's consciousness wouldn't be like, wow, I've been standing here for a really long time.
I think their consciousness is completely different than ours.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying is I feel like, and like this, I haven't thought this through 1,000%, but my idea of like a tree or a plant's consciousness is like what we would think of as a dream. Like, they dream, and they don't have like a plant body and they're walking around like, hey, Steve, what are you doing? But they have like thoughts, and they have like things going on. Yeah, like an experience, but it's like a dream. It's a dream. And I think that's kind of where unaware humans lie, is that they're in a dream. they have this thing called a consciousness, but it's a dream where they're just going through motion, because that's what, when you're unaware, like you're just like next move, next move, next. It's like you're a program. But I think that's what a tree's like, is like, okay, give nutrients, take nutrients. Like I'm like the tree's like, I'm definitely here. I'm definitely alive. I'm definitely aware. And it's like, no, I'm not. Just like a human. But that's what I'm saying is like all of a sudden, I think you can become aware by learning from other people and eating good foods. And like, it's like kind of like you come out of your matrix pod and you're like, oh, where did I all of a sudden come from? How did I get here?
Yeah.
You know, because I think that's what we look back on our lives. And I think you and I both go, okay, well, my 20s were interesting. I don't know where I was.
Yeah.
But I've never been alive until I turned like 30s or whatever, you know? Like,
Yeah.
but it's awareness. It's like this whole different ball game. It's this whole different experience.
I mean, if you start paying attention to yourself, I still have moments where words come out of my mouth and I'm like, it's just so automatic. And I'm like, oh, that's a fucking trip. That it's just like, that's not me. It's just my brain. Just
or like you automatically lie about something and you're like, whoa, no.
Yeah, it's just like, blah, blah, blah. I don't know where it's coming from. But this consciousness sees it happen and is like, it's just like an automatic response. It's the computer just spewing whatever it spews. It still happens, but the difference is I'm aware that it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness is becoming aware that you have these thoughts. You are not your thoughts. This thing has thoughts.
Yeah.
You're this consciousness that is experiencing this entire experience. Observing these thoughts that happen, observing emotions that happen, and
watching the software, but also the cool part is learning how to step in and manipulate it. Which I think that's like maybe another whole step of well, that's what I was talking about. Awareness is throwing the garbage, missing, and then stopping the program and being like, I'm going to manipulate the program and I'm going to put the garbage back. I just changed you. Literally, you can change your life by doing that. If you stopped not throwing the garbage in or missing the garbage and you put it in, you just changed your life. Literally.
This is why I don't mind getting out of bed and turning off the light. I don't mind that we have a gate that we need to open and close. And I certainly...
I need to record this.
I certainly think like doing things like spilling up a spill that you spill or drop shit on the ground. These are simple ways to start like
I think they're actually really hard. I think it's actually really hard. I think changing your life in those ways can be really difficult.
But I find those things easy.
Well, okay, but how easy was it when we were talking about doing hydroponics and you and I were both like, like it seemed like a very painful move.
It was scary.
It was, but that's the same thing as throwing a piece of garbage away. Is I'm just going to do the hydroponics, then I'll just do it like, oh, it's so scary and hard. And then you do it and it's like, it wasn't really that scary and hard. It actually was pretty easy and very satisfying. Yeah. Probably like throwing garbage away. But that's the thing is like your program says no. And then if you want to change the program, become more aware, then you break that program up and you go, I'm making changes. I'm running this place. I run this place, not my subconscious.
That's exactly it. I saw this video tonight of this guy, how he was saying, like, when he was in his unconscious state, he literally would every morning crumple up 6 Oreos and dump milk in it and then just chug it. It was just an automatic thing. He knew kind of it wasn't good for him, but he just did it.
Sounds delicious.
Yes. But I think that's kind of like that idea of like you just do these automatic things that aren't really very good for you.
Yeah.
In this computer program that's running. Yeah. And it's when you can start turning off those things that watch Andrew Huberman. He's really good about explaining how you can remap the neuroplasticity in your mind, and that's basically what it is. That's why you can literally just start brushing your teeth with your other hand, or rather than wash your hair, condition it, soap up, shave first, then wash your hair. Like, just start switching things up, and you're going to start rewiring things. And really, the biggest thing is leaping into the shit that feels uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, but that's what it is not being in the program is you running the program. But how are you going to run the program if you don't make the steps from the program? That's all kind of what eating is too, right? Is eating is very like, I'll just eat, no willpower. Well, the willpower is being the operator of the program. That's what willpower is. The willpower to say like, no, willpower is like, my body or my brain wants to do this, but we're actually going to do what I want to do.
People used to say I had amazing willpower with food, and I really don't think that's it. I rewrote my program.
Yeah.
I just rewrote it when it comes to food.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty amazing with food. You're a great influence.
Yeah, but it wasn't willpower. I just rewrote it's like you were saying.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I'm still trying to rewrite mine. I don't know why mine's so difficult to write over. Mine still goes, that guy had like 6 Oreos. Holy shit, I want to go get some Oreos. That sounds so good.
Well, I mean, I like an Oreo Blizzard once a year.
Yeah, once a year. Yeah. I just want to, I like food. That's my problem. And I think that's where you're lucky is you don't like food like I like food because
it's true. I never have.
I can indulge for sure. It feels great. Kind of. Well, okay. I'm pretty sure this is like an hour and a half
Probably.
podcast, but had a lot of things to say, and I think awareness is maybe not it could be the plaguing problem of the world today. It's a giant issue, and I mean, if we can make a podcast like this and like
create awareness,
or I guess I'm kind of like Neo, and you're kind of like Trinity, like pulling people out of their pod one at a time.
One at a time.
Just be aware, and I think that's have conversations with people and
make tiny changes. It doesn't even have to be anything monstrosity. I mean, we started slow. I started with working out, and you just kind of make changes from there.
Yeah, it's a way better life, but if you don't want to, then that's fine too.
You can stay in your pod.
Yeah.
We won't make you come out.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, YouTube and Spotify, check it out. Flirting with Realities. I think this is episode probably 43 is my guess.
44, I think.
44. We're almost to the half-century mark, which is amazing.
It is amazing.
We're going to have so many subscribers and comments and stuff soon.
Oh my gosh.
Be one of the first to jump on board.
Do it.
Comment.